Hi guys, in this video, I'm sharing a panel discussion from the American Academy of Audiology convention where I was asked to participate with some other industry leaders where we discussed the innovative technologies that are coming out at the convention and some other audiology related topics. I just want to note that I did a horrible job of recording the audio for this session, but I tried to have it cleaned up by an audio professional as much as possible, and I went ahead and got closed captions added to this video, so please make sure that you have closed captions turned on when you're watching it.
Hi, I'm Dr. Natalie Phillips, and I am an audiologist at Advanced Otolaryngology and Audiology in Fort Collins, Colorado. And I am here with some of the industry experts, and we're going to talk to you coming from the American Academy of Audiology in Columbus, Ohio. And I'd like to introduce our experts. First one is Dr. Clifford Olson, and he is the owner of Applied Hearing Solutions in Phoenix, Arizona. Next, I've got Dr. Amit Gosalia, and he is an audiologist with West Valley Hearing Center in Southern California. He was the past chair of the Public Awareness Committee for the American Academy of Audiology, and he is currently the president of the Audiology Practice Standard Organization. Last, we have Kim Cavitt, and she is owner of Audiology Resources, Inc. She is past president of the Academy of Doctors of Audiology, and she serves on the Audiology Quality Consortium board. So, starting today off, I would like to maybe ask you guys, being here in Columbus and at our Academy meeting, what has got you excited so far with what you've seen at our conference?
So, I think for me, I think rechargeability is something that's really kind of becoming the mainstream thing, to the point where I think that disposable is going to end up being something of the past. And we're starting to see a real big push by a lot of the manufacturers really to have options for that. And it's really exciting to see. And there's one particular manufacturer here who's been talking about getting rid of the battery almost entirely, right? And switching to like cell technology, fuel cell technology. So I think that's really neat. I think from a consumer perspective, that would be something that would intrigue me a lot, looking at different technologies that are kind of coming out right now.
Right.
I think one of the biggest advances that has happened over the past few years, which a lot of the companies have been promoting, is connectivity. So we're talking connectivity to Apple products like iPhones and iPads, and even now Androids and Apple products. So we can have phone conversations with people when you're hearing them through your hearing aids, and when you talk back, you can talk to your phone, and there's even one option where you can talk to your hearing aids. But also listen to music, podcasts, videos like Dr. Cliff these YouTube videos. Strain, you'll get his beautiful voice through both ears.
Oh, no.
Well, for me, it's the disruptive technologies, because I think as audiologists, we're all very passionate about more people having access to sound and communication. And so some of the personal sound amplification products, or PSAPs, and the assistive technologies that are now, used to be very niche and difficult to find and well vetted, are now here at the meeting, well vetted, available from lots of different entities and distributors, and that's really exciting to have people have more access to different avenues for amplification of sound.
Right, it's kind of coming out in the shadows in a way, right? There was this thing where it was just kind of, out there, mostly online, of course,
right.
But, I don't think that a lot of hearing care professionals were really knowledgeable and aware of what those options are, and it's kind of nice. Right? Exactly. And so I think it's nice to have some kind of exposure to it while we're here, and actually get to talk with the companies and see what their intent is with those devices, and see how we can maybe even integrate that as an option for patients, down the road. So I think that for a lot of us, I think we've got kind of a bad reputation of like not wanting there to be stuff like that, which anyone who I've talked to has been on the complete opposite side of that. They love seeing this new innovation coming out and accessibility options for patients. So that has also been a really exciting thing to see at this conference in particular.
I think some of it is also that some of the products have actually proven to be close to or as good as a prescribed hearing aid.
Especially for that mild to moderate hearing loss category. I still think that traditional delivery and traditional technology is what's required so that consumers have a good experience and really get the most out of the technology and can be able to get the most communicative abilities. But if you have a mild to moderate hearing loss and you're sitting on the sidelines, and not because of access or cost. Now there's going to be some alternatives for you that really have proven themselves, that they can well-train and manage your business.
Right. I think of it kind of like, and this is kind of the analogy that we use in our industry. When readers came out in optometry, there was a lot of individuals who, well, they were going to go to an optometrist to treat their vision loss. But when readers came out, you can demo them in the store. You can, pick up a book and look at them and see, like, oh my gosh, I can actually see better with this. And it was an aid to them to kind of get into this understanding of, okay, I can treat my vision loss. Well, that's kind of the way I see these PSAPs, right? Is that there's really no barrier, so cost is extremely effective.
And
convenience and access is huge.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of times, at least, when people reach out to me, they're from these rural areas. They're like, I don't even have a hearing care provider anywhere near me. What are my options? Like, well, you really don't have a whole lot of options unless you want to travel far to get that care, and you don't have to do that. You can at least get some kind of treatment, some kind of help, and kind of take it, just online.
And sometimes it's about time too. I mean, it's about that if they have PTO, and it's not just they have sick time or vacation time, they have all of this time, and they're not on their journey where they want to prioritize this time away from work for this issue. It's mild. It's, I don't want to use this stuff because it's can be such a process. And this makes it more accessible to them and lets them begin their journey, hopefully younger, and more mildly impaired.
Right.
And the great thing is that even if those products, because we're talking about the product itself, even if the products don't actually work, you still have audiologists and providers who are out there.
Yeah.
And you have providers out there. I mean, I would tell any consumer, any patient, that they should really begin their journey with an evaluation. So if you were going to go get prescription eyeglasses or contact lenses online, you still start with an evaluation with a professional. And I think you have your best chance of getting the most value and the best outcomes if you start with an evaluation.
Right.
And then we as providers need to all be open to really finding the best product to meet that patient's in front of their needs.
That's great. So talking about providers, people that are watching this video, what is an audiologist? Let's explain to them, first of all, what is an audiologist, or who would they go see when they need to have their hearing checked?
I'll start. So an audiologist is basically somebody who has gone through a bachelor's degree, and most of us have gone through a communication disorders degree of some sort, and then either have gone through a master's degree or a doctoral program, which is called or a PhD. There are audiologists, and then there are also hearing aid specialists who are, which maybe one of you can touch on that all day about audiologists. But some of us are also board certified, some are members of one of the three national organizations. But that's what audiologists are. We really push ourselves to be the highest professional workers.
And I want to add that audiology isn't just about hearing. So audiologists can work with balance and can work in, if you have tinnitus or ringing in your ears, they see kids, they see adults, and hopefully we can do more in prevention. We can do ear protection, we can do screenings, we can do processing for those people who can say they can hear but they can't understand. We can do rehabilitation that is beyond the product. We can remove cerumen or wax in your ears if that's what your issue is. These are all things that are in our realm, and there's a lot that we can do to, as I always tell people, help you hear and communicate more and follow less.
Right. Yes.
Yes.
And I mean, hearing instrument specialists, like Amit had mentioned, is that they are, capable a lot of the time to actually treat, but it's specifically in the narrow realm of hearing aids.
Right.
And a lot of them do their job extremely well. As with, any industry, just because they don't have, quote unquote, the highest level of education that's possible to do their work in that field doesn't mean that they're not equipped to be able to handle that.
Right.
It's just they're very narrow focused into just hearing aid dispensing rather than the other areas that audiology encompasses.
Which makes sense. And we talked about being an audiologist and also being a hearing instrument specialist. What about an otolaryngologist or an ear, nose, and throat physician? How would you define that for a consumer?
So I think of it as more of the ear health realm. So there's medical issues that can happen that can actually cause hearing loss. but they're focused on more of the medical intervention that is, causing that issue. And so they'll, perform surgeries, different procedures medically, prescribe medication for that. But then when it gets to the point of, okay, we've got the medical condition cleared out, then you have this, hearing loss that's left over from that. And so what they'll do is they'll actually refer to an audiologist to address the hearing side of that.
Or the balance or the tinnitus.
Exactly.
Right. And they're really a value asset in this process. Really only about 8 to 12% of patients have a hearing or balance issue that can be medically or surgically treated. So they have an important role, but a smaller role in the overall treatment or rehabilitation of hearing and balance problems, especially on the tinnitus side as well.
I think that primary care plays a role in this too, right? So the primary cares are often the first ones to identify that there is a hearing or a balance issue, and then so they could potentially refer to an audiologist or to an otolaryngologist at that point. So it's different entry points for different individuals, but it is important as a consumer to understand where you're at inside of that process and know who you're seeing and the reason why you're seeing that person.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about some of the signs and symptoms that someone might have that would bring them into an office to have their hearing checked or tested.
Usually it's funny, usually most of our patients come in because one of their friends or family noticed that they have a hearing issue. It's rarely the patient who comes in and says, I've got a hearing loss, I need to get help. Because it takes approximately 7 years for someone to really identify and then come in to actually do something about it. But if you ask them, you ask their family members who are with them, they're usually saying, well, we've been telling this person for years that they need to come in for a hearing test. So one of the biggest things is friends and family.
Right. And TV volume, I mean, that's a clear thing. I can't remember a single patient ever coming in who's identified that they may have some concern with their hearing that isn't listening to the TV at really high levels. But not only that, they have the TV volume typically higher, but they don't get better clarity out of it. And so that's kind of one of the things I want to make sure that consumers know is that, clarity is the thing a lot of the times that we're trying to fix. We're not trying to fix the volume issue. We're not just throwing in a bunch of amplification for all sounds. We're trying to get that clarity aspect back.
Well, that goes into the noise aspect, that sometimes it's that they can, I hear fine at home. But then when they go out to a restaurant or they go with friends or family, they're at church and there's any noise or competition, they feel isolated. I'm not part of the group anymore. I don't really understand what everyone is saying. They can hear.
Right.
But they're just not able to distinguish everyone's voices. And that's also, and I also want to add, anytime a patient has any symptoms that are isolated to a single ear, that they have ringing or hearing loss, or anything especially sudden that happens, they really should seek evaluation immediately. Anytime because really the world affects both of our ears, usually simultaneously.
Right.
And so if you ever have a symptom that's on one side, that's something that you should really address fairly quickly.
Well, so I see that question on my channel a lot. Is that, well, my right ear's plugged. I just feel like I need to pop it, or there's got to be wax in there. And, you can sit there for days, weeks trying to pop that ear, and it might not be that at all. I mean, it could be a tumor that's there. It could be a sudden, hearing loss that actually needs medical intervention, and time is of the essence when you start dealing with those conditions.
And one of the biggest aspects that we talk about with our patients is, number one, we can help you hear better. But we can't always help you understand them, because the hearing part of it, which I'll go into detail if I'm showing a video on this, is the hearing part happens more on the ear level, where the understanding part happens more at the brain level. And so we try to produce sound that's amplified with hearing aids or key sounds devices that can actually amplify those sounds so our brain has a better chance of understanding what's happening. But no matter what environment you're in, even with someone with normal hearing, we actually have difficulty with some of those environments.
Right. And you kind of go back to that 7-year point of you delay treatment by 7 years. I mean, what are you losing, like the capacity cognitively to be able to actually separate the information that you want versus like the background noise that you don't want? And I think it's really important that you understand, well, you should be going in very soon after you notice that there's some level of difficulty, because it's already been there.
Right. And sometimes the treatment goes beyond the amplification.
True.
It's about the communication strategies and team listening strategies that will really help a person to when they're in difficult situations, how to make that situation the most conducive for listening, where you see yourself, what part of the table, what part of the restaurant, what part of the church, that there are technologies available in these situations that might help them, that really goes beyond the product, and that's where professionals can be really valuable in this equation.
I explain to my patients that it's like a muscle. You know, if you're exercising a muscle, the nerves fire to the muscle and it keeps the muscle strong. But if you don't exercise, then the muscle weakens and it atrophies or it shrinks. And it's a similar thing with hearing. I feel like when you're in there earlier and you're getting amplification to stimulate the nerve, that is going to keep it intact, which means hopefully better a lot of what we're talking about.
Not every hearing test leads to amplification. I think it's always important to let people know that if you're having a hearing issue, get that baseline testing, because when we test you, make sure 5 years later, you still have something to compare it to.
Right. Yeah.
And there can be hearing difficulties in the absence, or let's say communication difficulties, in the absence of hearing loss. And there are treatments and there are strategies for dealing with that, with the hidden hearing loss. And I don't want people to think, well, I hear just fine, I can't understand that there's no help for them. There is, but you just need to be evaluated to see what options and alternatives. And that's where sometimes these personal sound amplification products can come into the equation and be really valuable in certain situations.
Well, and let's talk about how often should somebody get their hearing tested, whether it's their first time in or how often should they come back?
That's a good question. So what we generally would tell our consumers or patients is over the age of 55, that's my we support that, I'm sorry, but over the age of 55, as soon as you're noticing even just the slightest hint of any difficulties, get a baseline test. How often after that? Depends. It depends on the results. Sometimes I'll tell patients I go back in 2 years, sometimes 5 years, or once I've seen that there's a hearing loss, I should notice it once a year to track it. Because once some of these hearing losses are one-way streets, you can't stop the hearing from getting worse, but we can have to manage it with amplification.
And for me, it's anytime they have a change in what I call history or condition. Like anytime maybe they've had cancer and they've had chemotherapy treatment, or they've developed diabetes, or they've noticed a change in their hearing, or a change in maybe the ringing or noises in their ears, or they've been around more loud noises, then you want to be on top of that and have that done more routinely. And I'm with you. Actually, I'm even going to go younger. I think given the headphone use that's happening now, you're tested at birth. That's part of the process. But as you get into the technology wearing ages or the concert ages, you should get a baseline at that age. I mean, I just had to do this with my daughter, and it's been really valuable. And then as you progress, when you start to notice changes or your lifestyle or your history changes, have another baseline.
You know, I actually, when I went into the military, is when there was identified hearing loss in my right ear. If I had waited, till age 50 or 55, I mean, that would have went undiagnosed this entire time. And there's potential that a tumor or something could have caused that. And I'd have this tumor growing inside of my head, right? So, I mean, I think that, hitting the teen years, and this is just from my personal experience of what happened to me, getting that hearing test done as you enter your teenage years, and then, hopefully everything is fine at that point. But, and then when you notice that there is some level of difficulty, get it retested. And then once you start hitting those ages where there's potential for age-related hearing loss to start showing up, as you get into your 50s and 60s, it's always a good idea, if you haven't had one in a number of years, to go ahead and have another one at that point.
Or again, if your kid's in a band.
Right, yeah, I mean, common sense things you would think, right?
If your kid is going to join the band, get a baseline hearing test and get ear protection on that kid before they start in the band.
Right.
Any sort of band, whether it's an elementary school band or a high school band or a rock band, whatever that is. If your kid's a big concert goer, they need to wear ear protection.
Right.
Not only rock, classical music,
Anything that they respect. If they're a hunter, if they like ATVs or a big old Harley with a lot of big noise, you should really have baseline hearing tests, because you're just exposing yourself to things that you might have this underlying loss, and then ear protection becomes. I want so much more focus on prevention, because there's so much of this we can prevent if we get people younger and more mildly awake.
And I used to live up in the Pacific Northwest, and the Seattle Seahawks Stadium was the
Oh,
most,
it's-
it was the loudest
Oh,
stadium
yes.
in the
Yeah.
world. And they would actually ramp up the music, and it was so loud. And I'm sitting at home watching this on TV thinking, oh my gosh, the teenage everyone's hearing
Right.
while they're in the stadium. Well, so exactly what Dr. Cavitt was saying is that really to get exposure and education.
I wore protections to the 2016 World Series. I'll tell you, it was loud.
That was a good World Series.
It was a good World Series. I'm a Chicago Cubs fan, but no, I mean, those situations, you're exactly right. I mean, that was an enclosed the kingdom. It was completely enclosed, but it was terribly dangerous.
Right, and you think that just handing out these foam earplugs is what's going to help, but I know individuals who come in to see me that they're like, but I wore them, and they show me how they wear them, and they're not wearing them correctly. Right?
Never
And
wearing them correctly.
It's a huge, you have to understand really what's going on in that type of situation. So.
Well, and let's talk a little bit more. Let's kind of circle around back to technology again. And tell me a little bit more about, some of the things that you can order online or that are advertised on TV versus some of the new technology with hearing aids and like what you've seen here. What are the differences? What are the major differences?
I think it's a simplified version of a product, right? Which to some degree is a good thing, right? But the products that you can generally get online, we think of them more as PSAPs, so personal sound amplifiers. They can be, I'll be a little more technical here, frequency weighted to give more of a high frequency emphasis, which when people start to suffer from hearing loss, is typically those high frequencies which encompass the clarity components to speech, which are what will leave you first. And so these products are they understand they're trying to kind of shift that in that direction, so you're not just increasing a bunch of low frequencies to give you a perception of volume without the clarity, but there's not a whole lot of adjustment capability for most of these products.
And most of these products, the hearing aids that we work with in the clinics, have a lot of what's called compression. So the natural auditory system, the natural hearing, can naturally compress some of these louder sounds, but as we start to lose our hearing, we lose that natural ability. So these hearing devices, hearing aids, can actually compress that, and we actually have a lot of control of that along with
Well, and there are studies on the 8 most common hearing losses. And these technologies that are delivered direct to consumer are really based upon those studies and that platform. What if you don't have one of those 8?
Right.
And then if you don't have one of those 8, really all you're able to control is the volumes of those 8 formula. And everyone's hearing loss is different. And that's where evaluation is so important. Before you jump into spending any dollars, you should be evaluated, because then that will let you as the consumer go in informed. Okay, this class is completely inappropriate for me, or this, and so when you're buying something online, you can ask questions from an informed place rather than from a place of just like shooting.
I know, you're really just you're throwing something against the wall and just hoping it sticks, right?
Yeah.
And you could be, and everyone thinks that, well, my hearing loss is the typical one. There is no typical hearing loss, really. I mean, there's unique variances in everybody's hearing ability. I can't treat a similar hearing loss the exact same way with every single person. Otherwise, my job would be easy, and then I can take more vacation time.
Are you taking vacation?
No.
This is our vacation.
Right. We're in Columbus, which kind of brings you back to the next question of why would somebody see an audiologist?
That's a great question.
Since
While we're all thinking about it, I think one of the biggest things that I promote is, of course, education. I'm very pro education for everybody that's in this profession, whether it's audiologists, hearing aid dispensers, or audiologists. We have to be as educated as possible. So why audiologists? Well, we have at least a track record of education, but we have to. Right? So the bachelor's degree. So why see an audiologist? If you have a hearing or balance issue or when your ears, that's what requires.
I mean, it's a comorbidity thing too, right? So our training specifically will touch base on all of these different aspects of hearing, balance, all of these things. And so we are well trained and versed at getting the right referral process started, right? So there's a lot of things that I can't handle in my clinic, but I know the professionals that you need to go see in my area to get you pointed in that right direction.
And our goals are really, again, to help people communicate better and have better quality of life. And I think seeing an audiologist, just that evaluative aspect, like you wouldn't go to Warby Parker, or wherever that is, and buy glasses without being evaluated first. You wouldn't go to a PT or a physical therapist without some form of evaluation aspect. And that's why you really should, an audiologist, their specialty is evaluating hearing imbalance disorder, or auditory imbalance disorders, all things about that. And so that's always a great place to start your journey. Always a great place to start.
It's not that you have to buy a hearing aid from an audiologist, you may not even need a hearing aid, but at least that evaluation is going to help suspension. It's extremely important.
A hearing aid, a complete implant, a PSAP, rehabilitation, communication strategies, those are all equal tools in our toolbox. I used to, like Dr. Phillips, I used to work in otolaryngology, and it wasn't always a hearing aid. Sometimes it was swim plugs, sometimes it was ear protection, sometimes it was a cochlear implant or auditory osseointegrator or ball device. We have a lot of tools in our toolbox, and hearing aid is one of them.
And wax.
And wax.
Yeah.
You can do a lot of hearing loss by removing wax.
I cure hearing loss all the time.
Well, as industry experts, I have one last question. If there was anything else that you wanted to share with the consumer, now's your chance. I would like you to just think about something that maybe patients that have come in your door have asked you, something that you see commonly, or something that you just feel so passionate about that you'd like to share with some of the consumers out there, just about our industry and our profession.
I mean, I think it's a no-brainer from my perspective. I think educating yourself is extremely important, right? And not just my channel, there's a ton of resources out there. And I know, Dr. Cavitt, you're starting a resource right now for patients working on it. And it's not just from the hearing side of things, which is where I tend to focus at. You're looking at the broad scope of audiology with thinkaudiology.org, I believe.
Yes, right. And it's really about education. And I really wanted there to be a consumer site that was unbiased, not from a manufacturer standpoint, not from an association standpoint, completely unbiased. It's about all things audiology, from prevention to processing to tinnitus to balance to amplification, and implantables is part of that equation. And I think consumers need to be educated and to hold us accountable. And I know it's really important to all three of you that as well that there's a standard of care that patients should expect. And we need to hold ourselves accountable to provide the highest standard of care.
You said the word standard.
Yes.
Right, I know. You hear it all the time.
That's my practice standard.
It's really important that we as providers, you need to hold us as consumers to the standards. That we're really there to evaluate and treat and not to sell you something. I used to always say I never sold anything. I treated hearing loss. And that's what we as providers should do, and that's what consumers should educate themselves and hold us accountable.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with both. Education is very key. I think one of the biggest questions I always hear is, if I get hearing aids, am I going to hear normally? And I've always understood a lot of times counseling my patients that, in my opinion, there's no normal hearing, even with hearing aids. But you have a hearing loss, it can help you hear better, communicate better, so that your quality of life is significantly improved. But we cannot, it's a misnomer that we don't hear hearing loss. It's a misnomer that you can have normal hearing. Spend more money on hearing aids and hear that much better. Well, there's data to maybe disprove some of that, but the reality is we're trying to improve communication ability versus curing a hearing loss or getting more hearing.
Right, because we're sending sound still through a damaged system.
Right.
Yes.
We're still sending sound through a damaged system, whether it's a damaged auditory system or a damaged processing system. We just want to give you the best tools available to be able to communicate the best you can at where you are.
You know what? You just said the words I tell patients. You're sending a wrong signal to a damaged system.
To a damaged system. I used to say I could put $1 million hearing aid on you, and it would still be going to a damaged system.
But the key is that we're trying to maximize whatever the potential is for that individual, And it's different for everybody, but there's one thing that you should not be willing to give into, and that's the good enough aspect. You should never settle for good enough. There's always your best, and it's not some figments out there. It's like we know how to evaluate and to ensure that you can get the maximum for
With
you.
evidence.
With evidence.
With real
Exactly.
ear and
Right.
with speech noise testing and with inventories and really talking to you about all of your needs and strategies, like what's your lifestyle, what are your needs. To really talk and listen, and not only talk, but listen to our patients. And I agree with you, it's not about what's good enough, because sometimes what's good enough isn't a hearing aid, it's a cochlear implant.
Right. I know. Yeah.
And too many patients wait too long. And as someone who did this for one of the most rewarding things I ever did, oh my gosh, the life changing when people go from I've been struggling and have open and be able to understand literally in one of my cases 100% of words with a cochlear implant on day one.
From like 0%, right?
Like
Yeah.
zero.
I know. Yeah.
And there's just so many options for patients. And I just want them, again, I want people to hear more and feel less.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for your time, Dr. Olson, Dr. Gosalia, and Dr. Cavitt.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. I sincerely apologize for the sound quality of that. I really try to make sure that I get good audio when I'm doing these recordings, and I definitely did not get good quality audio when I was recording this, but I promise that I will do better on the next go around. That being said, if you did like the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and share it. And if you want to see more videos just like this one, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I'll see you next time.